Part 1. Good evening. Tonight we fall into a different time where the air smells of ash and rot, and every step through the cobbled streets echoes a question no one dares to speak aloud. A thin mist rises with the dawn over the city of Avignon, clinging to roof tiles, curling through alleyways, seeping into every crevice of the waking world. The bells toll low, not for prayer, but for the dead. A cart lumbers past its wheels, leaving damp tracks in a street already stained by sorrow. And in the pale light of morning, a figure moves alone. A long waxed cloak sways with each step. A wooden cane taps the ground, searching for the shape of the world ahead. And then there is the mask, long, curved, absurd to modern eyes. A beak filled with herbs, lavender, myrrh, mint, camphor. A nose built to trap the air before it enters the lungs. Behind it, two glass lenses peer out, rounded and dark like the eyes of an insect. This is not a bird, not a monster. It is the city's last line of defense. They wouldn't survive a single day as him. So before we dim the lights on this chapter of history, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I'm doing here. And in the comments, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's follow the echoes of history into the night. The plague doctor steps over a gutter where yesterday's blood is already mixed with morning rain. The butcher shop is shuttered. The baker's windows are dark. In the distance, a child's cry fades too quickly. He doesn't stop. He cannot. His task awaits. Avignon, once vibrant and rich with the perfumes of trade, is now clotted with fear. Curtains are drawn not to keep out the sun, but to hide the symptoms, the swellings, the blackened skin, the way voices change when breath becomes shallow. Already half the city has succumbed. Whole neighborhoods lie hushed. Monks have stopped ringing bells for the dead. There are too many. And this man, this doctor, whose name no one remembers, carries not hope but routine. He checks his satchel, bandages dipped in vinegar, a small jar of crushed emerald fabled to draw out the corruption, dried flowers tied with twine, a scalpel, a prayer. His first stop is a merchant's house, 3 floors, expensive shutters, a fine place once. Now its door is marked in charcoal with a crude X, the sign of infection. He raps twice with his cane, waits, then enters. Inside, the air changes, staler, hotter. He lifts the edge of his mask just slightly to adjust the herbs. He can't afford to breathe this in, not directly. No one really knows how the plague moves through touch, through air, through punishment from God, but the doctor believes in distance and ritual. The merchant is in the bed, face gray, chest still. A daughter kneels beside him, eyes, red hands clutching a rag damp with wine and hope. She does not beg, she knows better. She only looks at the doctor as if he might rewind time. He examines the body, checks the swellings beneath the arms, the dark lesions along the groin, the mouth twisted in its final breath. It is too late. He leaves a small satchel on the bedside table, a mixture of dried sage clove and rose petals. Not medicine, just masking scent. Something for the daughter to hold when the rot sets in. As he steps back into the street, the wind carries a new sound. The scrape of wheels, a cart. 2 men approach, faces wrapped in cloth, their hands thick with ash. They nod. He nods in return. The body will be collected by sundown. No burial, just flame. The day stretches on. Another house, a tavern. A church with its altar turned into a makeshift sickbed. At each stop, the doctor repeats his motions. Inspection, evaluation, notification, but always the same conclusion. No cure, only containment. Sometimes he tries to offer comfort, a coin placed gently in a child's palm, a blessing muttered over a sleeping elder, a hand placed on a shoulder through layers of waxed linen, but mostly he observes, he records, he walks. By midday the smell of burning corpses rides in on the breeze. A low column of smoke drifts above the south quarter. Dogs howl, bells remain silent. A woman chases him down an alley screaming in Occitan, holding something wrapped in a cloth. He backs away. Her husband, she says, is infected. She begs for a miracle the doctor cannot give. He gives her a pouch of dried thyme and tells her to boil it in wine. She nods like it is scripture. He knows it is not. And still he walks. The streets feel narrower now. Every breath behind the mask is a reminder this is not safety. This is illusion. He sees a young apprentice run past him barefaced, terrified. That one will be dead in a week. By sunset he returns to his quarters, an old monk's cell behind the infirmary. He strips the outer robe, scrubs his hands with vinegar, sits by the single window. He writes. Every day ends in ink. Today 27 dead, 6 found alive, 0 recovered, 1 child unmarked, 1 laugh heard in the alley. He ends with a line, I am not hope, I am witness. Outside the bells remain silent. Inside the ink dries. Tomorrow will come, and with it the beaked mask, the cane, the ritual, because someone must walk through the dead city, and he already knows he will not last. Part 2. The mask rests on the table like an animal skull, hollow-eyed and waiting. In the flickering candlelight of early dawn it appears almost sentient, less like a tool and more like a creature that feeds on breath. The doctor watches it in silence as he bandages his fingers. His skin has begun to crack from the vinegar, his joints stiff from the weight of the robe. Still he dresses without complaint. The cloak comes first, thick and waxed, to repel air, water, and blood. Then the gloves tied at the wrists with twine, the boots, the wide-brimmed hat, a parody of a physician's pride, and finally the mask slid gently over the face and fastened behind the head. The world narrows to 2 clouded lenses and a stale bouquet of herbs packed inside the beak. He does not remember the last time he smelled the real world. Outside the street is quiet, too quiet. He listens for the usual signs, carts weeping, the rustle of feet behind shutters, but hears only the wind. A church bell tolls once in the distance, then nothing. He steps into the alley, cane tapping as always. Children once chased dogs here. Merchants once haggled beneath colored awnings. Now the only color is gray. The first task of the day takes him to a convent. The sisters had written a note pinned to the infirmary gate 3 days ago requesting help. When he arrives, the gates are ajar. The courtyard is still. Statues of saints stare blindly into space. He finds 2 nuns alive, barely. One coughs blood, the other prays with cracked lips. They have placed the rest of their sisters in the chapel wrapped in linen soaked in wine. He performs his duty, checks pulses, measures swellings, leaves chalk marks on the wall, and he lights 3 candles. Not because it helps, but because they asked. He moves on. His path takes him past the tannery where the smell of leather once fought with that of rotting hides. Now only the rot remains. Crows pick at something in the gutter. He doesn't look closely. A man on the corner waves at him, not in desperation but in recognition. It's the herbalist. He set up a crude stand, jars of vinegar, bags of dried herbs, and small wax idols shaped like cats. He smiles. Business is good, he says through a cloth mask. The doctor nods. He knows the irony. He examines the jars. One contains wormwood. Another is labeled black snail dust. Protection, the herbalist says, or at least the feeling of it. The doctor buys nothing, but he leaves a coin anyway. Further down the street, he hears music. Not the kind born of joy, but of superstition. A procession of flagellants passes by, men in robes, faces hidden back streaked with blood. They chant in Latin rhythm broken by pain. One carries a cross, another swings a censer. They do not look at the doctor. He does not look at them. Historians still debate whether these acts spread the plague further or simply offered distraction. At the time, no one asked. It was a gesture, and gestures were what people had left. Near the square, a priest stands on a wooden crate reciting psalms to no one. His voice is raw, his eyes hollow. "The end is not near," he says. "The end is now." The doctor keeps walking. He enters a narrow home on the edge of the market. Inside, a woman sits beside her daughter's bed. The girl is no older than 5. Her breath is shallow. Her skin is hot to the touch, except for her fingers already cold. The mother does not cry. She asks only one question. "Will it be quick?" He doesn't answer. Instead, he opens a vial of rose oil, dabs it on the girl's forehead, and places a coin in her hand. The woman bows her head. Sometimes mercy is a ritual, too. He leaves the house and walks east toward the river. There, amid reeds and drying linen, he meets another doctor. The first he's seen in weeks. This man's robe is cleaner, his mask less worn. He carries a book, writing as he walks, observing, documenting. "Doctor," the man says. They nod to one another. "Anything new?" the other asks. The beaked masks hide expression, but the silence between them is enough. "No," the first doctor says. They part ways. Later, in the poorer quarter, he visits a midwife's home. She had treated many. Now she lies on her own table, a cloth over her face. Her daughter, no more than 12, opens the door. She does not speak. The doctor kneels. He places 2 silver coins on the table. One for the burial, one for the memory. That night, back in his cell, he removes the mask with careful hands. His face is soaked in sweat. His cheeks are pale. The skin beneath his eyes has gone thin, bruised by breath held too long, too often. He writes again. Today, 21 confirmed, 8 suspected, 3 candles lit, 1 coin returned. Then beneath that, a sentence without punctuation. I forget what clean air tastes like. He closes the journal. Outside, wind howls through the narrow streets. Inside, the mask waits, and the doctor sleeps in a robe he no longer removes. Part 3. Morning comes with no birdsong. The sun, dulled by smoke, rises behind a veil of ash and yellow haze. The doctor wakes with stiffness in his spine and a metallic taste in his mouth. He moves slowly, methodically, like a ritual bound by habit. He dons the layers again, the cloak, the gloves, the mask, the hat. He tightens each strap without thought, as if armoring himself for something far older than plague. Before he steps out, he marks the door behind him with charcoal, one vertical line, faint and fading, a way to count the days he has endured. The street is emptier than the day before. Windows are no longer just shuttered, they are nailed shut. Doors are chained. In one corner, someone has painted a crude warning: the angel has passed here. Superstition thickens with each death. Some draw stars over their thresholds, some hang garlic in bunches, others smear lamb's blood across the lintel, believing the plague passes like the wrath in Exodus. The doctor notes them all, not because they work, but because they reveal how far fear can reach. He turns toward the apothecary near the monastery. Supplies have dwindled: soothing powders, dried mint oil, of cloves. The shop's interior is half emptied. Its shelves bear mortar still stained with elder root. The apothecary himself is gone. A young boy stands behind the counter now, barely old enough to shave, but with eyes already hard. "I'll take whatever's left of the valerian," the doctor says. The boy nods, says nothing, wraps the bundle in cloth. A coin changes hands. No blessing is exchanged. On his way out, the doctor sees the back room. A cot, a sheet pulled over a shape too still. He doesn't ask. The river district is next. He walks along the banks, passing barges half loaded with spoiled grain and crates no one dares open. The water reflects a sickly green, broken by the occasional ripple from rats, ducks, or worse. The air here is thicker, closer. A miasma, the scholars would say, a poison that floats and clings. He covers the nose vents on his mask with fresh lavender. Along the docks, a crowd gathers around a man on a wooden platform. His arms are raised. His voice echoes in rage. This is not a sickness, he shouts. It is punishment. For greed, for lust, for false priests and foreign blood. The crowd murmurs. Some nod, others look away. The doctor moves through them like mist unseen but felt. At the edge he finds a girl collapsed beneath a cloth awning, alone, burning with fever. Her face red, her breath shallow. He checks her pulse, it flutters. He opens his satchel, damp linen, ground willow bark, a few drops of vinegar and thyme. He applies the cloth to her forehead. She stirs but does not wake. He leaves her wrapped in what warmth he can spare, a coin tucked into her hand for the one who finds her next. It is not medicine, but it is something. Noon bells do not ring anymore. Time is kept by shadows and by instinct. He turns toward the Jewish quarter. He pauses at the gate. The tension here is thicker than elsewhere. Rumors run faster than the rats. Whispers accuse healers of poisoning wells, of inviting wrath, of conjuring plague through forbidden texts. He enters anyway. The streets are narrower, the silence deeper. An elder greets him, not with fear, but with the weight of familiarity. They've seen him before. "We have lost 3, the man says, but we wash, we pray, we bury our dead with honor." The doctor nods. He's led to a small home, 2-room, stone floor, incense burning low. A young man lies still on the bed. No swelling, no lesions, but pale, still. Not the plague, the doctor murmurs. "No," the elder says, "he's starved. We locked ourselves in too long." The doctor closes the young man's eyes. As he leaves, the elder gives him a sprig of rosemary. "Not for healing," he says, "for memory." He accepts it, and for a moment feels something close to grief. In the late afternoon, he hears laughter. It startles him. He turns a corner and sees 3 boys kicking a ball made of wrapped cloth in the alley behind the baker's shop. Their ribs show through their shirts. One coughs, another stumbles, but they laugh anyway, as if mocking death itself. A mother shouts from a window. The boys scatter. He watches the cloth ball roll to his feet. He picks it up, looks at it, then tucks it beneath his cloak. Tomorrow he'll burn it, just in case. At sunset, the shadows stretch long across the city walls. He returns to his quarters, places the rosemary by the window, writes again. Today, 14 dead, 1 possibly spared, 3 boys playing, no bells. He adds a final note. Even laughter carries risk. He removes the mask slowly, lets the sweat cool on his face. Outside, the city settles into a hush. The kind of silence that waits, not for salvation, but for more footsteps. Part 4. The next morning begins without color. A gray dawn spreads across the city like wet linen. Smoke from the burning pits hangs low, refusing to rise. The doctor stirs before the first cart rolls, before the bells remember their task. He doesn't stretch, doesn't yawn. He sits still as stone and waits for his own breath to convince him that he is indeed still alive. Then slowly the ritual begins again. Waxed cloak, gloves, hat. And the mask, always the mask which transforms a man into a figure people both fear and follow. His first destination is the physician's guild hall. Not to learn, to confirm a death. Inside the hall is quiet, the long benches empty, the windows shuttered. Books remain open on lecterns, their pages curled from moisture. On the table near the center lies Master Lothair, one of the city's elder physicians. His body is rigid, his eyes half open. Flies gather where his mouth no longer breathes. He'd been among the last to claim knowledge. He'd believed in balancing the humors in the sacred art of leeching in the purification of the blood. But in the end, all knowledge bled the same. The doctor notes the position of the limbs, the swelling beneath the ears, the color of the fingertips. He records it all in his small ledger. Then he takes a ring from Lothair's finger, not out of greed, but so someone will remember where he fell. He lights a candle, not for Lothair's soul, but for those who still think they understand this sickness. Outside, the streets are in motion, not with life, but with labor. Two men push a cart piled with corpses, their faces hidden beneath linen. They speak to one another not with words, but with gestures. They have learned that silence makes the load easier to bear. Behind them, a priest walks with a censer, the smoke barely masking the stench. A woman kneels as they pass, making the sign of the cross with trembling fingers. The doctor watches. He does not kneel. He walks toward the butcher's alley. There he finds a cluster of neighbors standing in a half-circle, whispering. At their center is a man bound to a post, shouting scripture with foaming lips. He has shirtless eyes, wide arms red with lash marks. He tried to drive out the plague with holy fire, someone mutters. Another adds he burned his own child. The doctor pushes through the crowd. The man stares at him. They sent you, he hisses. They sent the crow to pick clean the bones. The doctor says nothing. Instead, he walks past. The crowd parts. They do not cheer. They do not follow. They simply wait for someone else to speak. At midday, the doctor visits a schoolhouse. The door is unlatched. Inside, the benches are overturned. Chalk lies broken on the floor. A small pile of toys rests in the corner untouched. At the far end, beneath a painted window, sits the teacher. She wears no mask. Her dress is clean, pressed. But her eyes are closed, her chest still. Around her neck is a pendant, a cross fashioned from 2 twigs and a ribbon. The doctor checks her pulse, cold. He lifts her hand, stiff. Then he sees the note, folded barely visible beneath her arm. He opens it. It contains only names. A list of children. 23 of them. He recognizes 2 from earlier visits. He writes the names into his ledger, not because anyone asked, but because forgetting would be a second death. Outside, a boy runs by with a loaf of bread clutched to his chest. A baker shouts after him. No one chases. The doctor turns toward the infirmary. Inside, the air is thick with lye and sweat. A nun greets him, eyes tired, sleeves damp. We lost 4 this morning, she says. 3 more are fading. She gestures to the far room. He walks in. 3 cots, 3 patients. One, a man in his 40s, sleeps chest rattling. Another, a girl, stares at the ceiling, lips moving in silent prayer. The third sits upright. A soldier, or once was. His armor lies in a heap beside the bed, stained and dented. The doctor approaches. The man coughs once, then grins. I always wondered if I'd see the bird, he rasps. Never thought it would be like this. The doctor examines him, swelling in the neck, fever high, time short. The man reaches out. The doctor hesitates, then places a gloved hand on the soldier's arm. You've seen worse, he says. The soldier laughs dry and painful. Not like this. The doctor leaves a small cloth soaked in rosewater on the man's chest. For dignity, for scent. At dusk he returns to the river. There by the old mill he burns the teacher's note. The wind takes the ashes gently. One ember lands on his sleeve. He brushes it off, then stands still as night thickens. Later in his cell he writes, Today 29 dead. One soldier remains, 23 names preserved, one prayer burned. He pauses, then adds, "The plague teaches silence, but it does not erase voices." He closes the book. The candle sputters, and somewhere nearby the wind carries the faint echo of a lullaby no one finished singing. Part 5. Before the sun rises, the city is already coughing. A thick fog clings to the alleys, heavy with soot and the sweet rot of decay. The doctor wakes before his body is ready. His joints ache as he sits up on the cot. The skin beneath his mask feels tender. He breathes in slowly, allowing his thoughts to collect in stillness. There is no time for dreams in this profession. Only memory, and memory is heavier than sleep. He performs his routine cloak, gloves, mask, hat. He marks the wall 5 slashes and 1 diagonal. 6 weeks since he began this ward. Longer than most, longer than expected. Today's list is already waiting. The nun left it outside his door, names, addresses, symptoms, some familiar, others new. He tucks it into his pouch and steps into the morning gloom. The streets murmur with the distant creak of carts and the scrape of wooden wheels. A baker, one of the few still working, stacks flat loaves beside a doorway. He glances at the doctor but says nothing. Conversation has become rare, as if words themselves carry contagion. The first stop is a widow's home in the weaver's quarter. The front door is cracked open, swinging slightly in the breeze. The doctor knocks once, then steps inside. She lies in the front room, surrounded by linens she never finished sewing. Bolts of blue and ochre cloth cover the walls like drapes. Her face is pale, peaceful, arms crossed over her chest. The note she left rests on her stomach. "I prepared the body. Please forgive the intrusion." No signs of struggle, no sign of fear. She had chosen her ending. He covers her with a blanket, sprinkles lavender along the seams of the windowsill, and leaves a small drawing on her table, a crude circle with a cross inside it, the emblem the guild uses to mark quiet deaths. Deaths without panic, without violence. He writes in his book, "One prepared, one honored." His next stop takes him toward the meat market. Along the way, he sees the children again, the same 3 from before, but now only 2. They stand on opposite sides of the road, looking at one another, the cloth ball between them. One kicks it. The other doesn't move. Eventually, the first picks it up, carries it away. The doctor notes their silence. At the market, he meets a city official, a bailiff armored and sweating. "We're shutting the southern gate," the man says. "Too many fleeing, too many sick coming in." The doctor nods. "They won't like it," the bailiff adds. "No one likes the plague," the doctor replies. The man scowls. "You're cold." The doctor turns to leave. "I'm still here." South of the market, he reaches a home marked with 2 signs, a chalk X and a red cloth tied to the door handle. Both are warnings. Inside, a man is sprawled on the floor, groaning. A neighbor kneels beside him, holding his hand. "He didn't want to be alone," the neighbor says. The doctor kneels, examines the swelling. "Advanced stage." "I'll stay," the neighbor adds. "He helped raise me." The doctor doesn't protest. There are no rules against kindness, only risks. He prepares a tincture, applies it to the man's lips. It won't help, but the taste might ease something. He nods to the neighbor and leaves. Outside, 2 dogs fight over a pigeon carcass. No one stops them. At noon, he rests briefly beneath the old bell tower. The bell hasn't rung in 10 days. Too many ringers lost. Too much silence accepted. He opens his pouch. Bread, hard cheese, a few slices of dried apple. He eats without removing the mask, tilting the herbs inside just enough to create a gap. He drinks from a small tin cup filled with rainwater. Across the square, a woman stands in a doorway. She's holding a doll by one arm. It swings slightly, its cloth face smudged with soot. She doesn't speak, only watches. He finishes eating, returns the cup, moves on. The final stop takes him near the cathedral. There in the garden beside the cloister, 3 monks dig graves. The earth is dark, freshly turned. Shovels move without pause. No prayers, no songs. The doctor approaches. One monk looks up. His young face spotted with mud. 17 today, he says, all from the abbey. Any left, the doctor asks. The monk hesitates. 2. The doctor walks to the building's side chamber. Inside, a brother lies beneath a blanket, breathing shallowly. He opens his eyes, murmurs a greeting. The doctor sits beside him. They say nothing, not for a full minute. Then the monk says, "Do you remember the smell of spring?" The doctor removes a small pouch of mint from his satchel. He hands it to the monk. The man smiles faintly, close enough. The doctor stands. He leaves a note for the other monk, dosage instructions, what to expect. As he walks back toward his quarters, the city seems quieter than usual. Not peaceful, exhausted. The smoke from the burn pits rises slower now. The coughs are fewer, but the weight of absence grows. In his room, he removes the mask and sets it down gently. He washes his hands in vinegar. Writes, "Today 8 dead, 2 surviving, 1 remembered spring." Then he adds, "The silence grows louder each day." He closes the book, lies down fully clothed, listens for the bell, but nothing rings, only the sound of his own breathing. Still steady, still his, Part 6. The morning air carries a metallic sharpness like cold iron left out in the rain. Mist hangs between the buildings, curling through the alleys like something alive, something searching. The doctor steps into the street with slower feet today. His shoulders ache beneath the weight of the cloak. His eyes sting behind the lenses of the mask. But the city waits, and so he walks. Today, his route leads him toward the hillside quarter, where the wealthier citizens once lived in painted houses with tiled roofs and rose gardens. Now the roses are wilting and the gardens are silent. Death does not discriminate by coin. The first home he enters was once opulent. A wide arch frames the entryway. Tapestries still hang on the walls, though they're faded now, corners chewed by rats. Inside, a servant opens the door with shaking hands. She wears no shoes. Her eyes are red. "He's upstairs," she says. The doctor ascends the staircase, each step creaking beneath his boots. In the bedroom, the master of the house lies in bed covered in silks. His breathing is slow-labored. A ring of perfume bottles surround his pillow as if scent could still drive out death. The doctor examines him, swellings beneath the arms, black streaks along the thighs, early signs, painful but not yet fatal. The man opens his eyes. "I have paid 3 physicians," he says. "None returned." The doctor says nothing. The man reaches for a pouch beside the bed and places it on the sheets. "For you." The doctor does not take it. Instead, he opens a jar of vinegar-soaked cloth and places it near the man's nose. "Breathe," he says. "Not as a cure, but as comfort." He leaves a small sachet of herbs, writes a note for the servant, cool compress, no red meat boiled broth. She nods, eyes wide. At the door, she whispers, "Will he live?" The doctor does not lie. "I don't know." Outside, the sun begins to rise fully, breaking through the mist. Its warmth barely touches the stone streets. In the square, a child stands beside a barrel filled with water. He drops in stones one by one, watching the ripples. The doctor watches him from a distance. The boy doesn't speak, just keeps dropping stones. By midday, the doctor reaches the edge of the hillside quarter. Here lies the pest house. A crude shelter built from timber and canvas erected by city decree as a place of quarantine. Those who show symptoms are brought here, some by cart, some by foot, many by force. The guards at the gate wave him in. Inside it is chaos stitched together by desperation. Coughing echoes through the halls, moans, prayers, mutterings. The doctor walks slowly, deliberately. He checks on patients he marked earlier. One has worsened. Another, a young girl, seems to have stabilized. Her cheeks are flushed now, not pale, her breathing even. He makes a note in his book, possible improvement subject C12. A boy follows him from room to room, carrying a bucket of water. "You're the bird," he says. The doctor nods. "Are you afraid?" The doctor pauses. "Every day." The boy thinks for a moment. "Me too." He hands the doctor a cloth. "For the sweat," he says. The doctor accepts it. He will burn it later, of course. But for now, he holds it. In the far chamber of the pest house, a man has barricaded himself inside. The attendants whisper that he refuses treatment, refuses prayer, refuses even to speak. The doctor knocks. No reply. He opens the door. Inside, the man is sitting on the floor, surrounded by drawings, hundreds of them scratched into the wood, drawn in charcoal, painted in blood. Circles, eyes, wings, strange symbols that spiral and twist. The man looks up. His eyes are fevered. "They told me the angel would come," he says, "but they sent the crow." The doctor kneels beside him. He places a hand on the man's shoulder. "Do you want peace?" The man begins to cry. Not loudly. Just a single breath that shakes and collapses. The doctor calls for an attendant, leaves a mixture of valerian root and wine. "Let him sleep," he says. As he exits, the boy with the water pail catches up to him. "Did he see the angel?" "Not yet." Before sunset, the doctor visits the outskirts of the city. Here the burial ground has grown into a field of mounds. The diggers no longer mark the graves. The earth is turned packed, turned again. He walks among them, counting the fresh piles. 37 today. He stands still for a moment. Then he places the cloth the boy gave him onto one of the mounds. It flutters in the breeze. He says nothing. That night he returns to his room. Writes by candlelight. Today 12 visited, 2 improved, 1 drawing-filled cell, 1 conversation with a child. He adds, "Among the dead small kindnesses remain." He closes the book, extinguishes the flame, listens to the silence, and feels for the first time in weeks something close to sleep tug at the edge of his breath. Part 7. The wind changes that morning. It moves with urgency, slicing through the alleys, stirring the ash on the rooftops, rattling the boarded shutters like impatient hands. The doctor senses it before he opens the door. Something in the air feels sharper, stranger, less like weather and more like omen. He steps outside. The mask is tight. The cane taps with each step, but the streets feel less solid than before, like a stage just before the curtain falls. The southern quarter is his destination today, an area that once housed craftsmen and bookbinders, their shops nestled close their homes, stacked in narrow rows. Now the smoke from burned books clings to the walls, and the only work left is burial. He stops at a small house marked with 3 black crosses. That many is rare. He knocks, waits, then pushes the door open. Inside it's still, a faint sound of water dripping. The hearth is cold. He finds the family together in one bed, mother, father, and 2 children curled into each other as if the fever froze them mid-embrace. Their faces are peaceful. There are no signs of struggle, no overturned chairs, no prayers scrawled in desperation. He leaves a note for the collectors. Then carefully he opens the window. The wind rushes in, lifting dust and scent into the air. He places a small branch of rosemary on the sill, turns and leaves without a sound. Outside, the wind has drawn others. People are gathering at the corner of the square. Not many, but enough to stir concern. They're not mourning. They're watching. At the center stands a man in red robes, not a priest, not a doctor. A traveler, perhaps. He holds aloft a scroll and speaks with slow, powerful rhythm. The breath is poison, he says. The stars have turned. The air itself carries the devil's message. The doctor approaches quietly, standing just at the edge of the circle. The man continues unshaken by the mask that faces him. Cover your mouths with linen soaked in vinegar. Burn sage in your doorways. If your neighbor coughs, burn their clothing. If your mother coughs, burn your memory. Some nod, others whisper, a few back away. The doctor says nothing. He turns and walks on. Later he visits a tenement near the old university. Inside, a young woman lies on a pallet of straw, fevered and muttering. The caretaker, a boy of 16, opens the door for him. She's my sister, the boy says. We drank the same wine, ate the same bread, but only she burns. The doctor examines her. Her pulse is quick, her breath shallow. She clutches a small book in her hands, its cover stained with sweat. He opens it gently. It's a diary, pages filled with sketches, dreams, half-finished thoughts. He leaves it beside her. He cannot take what still lives. She may live, he says. Will she remember me? The doctor looks at him. I don't know. He gives the boy a small bag of crushed mint and instructs him to hang it above her head. When he steps back into the street, the wind has shifted again. A fresh gust carries with it the scent of lime and fire. He turns toward the western road where the city officials are burning goods, blankets, furniture, even doors from infected homes. Flames leap in a controlled circle as workers in soot-covered tunics shovel ash and broken timber. He walks among them, counts the loads, notes the pattern of disposal. One man collapses from smoke inhalation. The doctor checks his breath, finds it strong, and signals for rest and water. Another man stands nearby, face flushed, eyes glazed. Do you see it, he whispers, in the smoke. The doctor follows his gaze. Above the flames, the air shimmers, not with visions, but with heat and exhaustion. I see only fire, the doctor says. The man nods slowly, then I envy you. At dusk, he returns through the cathedral square. The doors are barred. A scroll hangs from the gate sanctuary, suspended until further notice. Even the divine has closed its doors. At his quarters, he removes the mask slowly. The leather straps have left marks on his skin. He washes his hands, changes the herbs in the beak, adding rue sage and a dried orange peel. He sits, opens the ledger. Today 11 dead, 3 suspected, 1 warning sermon, 1 diary held. He hesitates, then writes. The wind does not carry answers, only reminders. He closes the book. Outside the wind returns. It rattles the shutters. It scrapes along the stone. But inside for now the candle holds. And the doctor breathes. Part 8. Rain arrives before sunrise, soft and steady. It darkens the cobblestones, pools in the cracks, washes the ash from doorsteps, but not the memory of what lies behind them. The doctor watches from the doorway of his quarters, cloak already heavy on his shoulders, mask resting in his hands. The beak stained slightly at the tip from weeks of herbs no longer smells like mint or rose. It smells like damp linen and thyme. He steps into the rain. The water taps against his mask in quiet rhythm. The city does not stir. It never stirs early anymore. His first visit takes him to a tailor's row, a series of shops once loud with gossip, now silent. The shop he enters smells faintly of dye and wet wool. A woman lies on the table where garments used to be cut. Her arms are thin, her hands still stained blue from indigo. Beside her sits an old man, eyes sunken, watching. She wouldn't stop working, he says, even when the fever came. Said we owed the Lord a full order. The doctor examines her. There is no movement. Her lips are gray, her chest still. He covers her with a cloth. The man doesn't cry. He simply turns away and begins folding the last tunic she ever stitched. The doctor nods once before leaving. Outside, the rain has grown harder. A girl skips between puddles, her boots too large, her coat too thin. She carries a satchel filled with something wrapped in cloth. As she passes the doctor, she stops. "Mama says the crow keeps us safe," she says. He tilts his head, the only gesture he can give. She holds out the satchel. "It's herbs. We boiled them just in case you run out." He takes it carefully. Inside, lavender, rosemary, and 2 crushed cloves of garlic. "Thank you," he says. Her eyes brighten, then she runs. In the apothecary's district, a small crowd gathers near a boarded door. 2 men argue in low voices, one with the look of a clerk, the other with the posture of a beggar. The door is marked 2 black lines side by side. "Locked herself in," the clerk says she's healing with stones and prayer. The beggar adds, "She used to read the stars. Now she reads her own skin." The doctor steps forward, taps the door twice. No answer. He waits, then opens it. Inside, the air is thick with incense. Scrolls hang from the ceiling on strings, and every surface is covered in symbols, circles, stars, spirals. In the center sits a woman, legs crossed, body thin as rope, eyes closed. "I am not infected," she says. He approaches. "Then why the marks?" he asks, nodding to the black streaks on her wrists. "I made them," she replies, "so it would think I'd already been taken." He does not speak. Instead, he hands her a small vial of wine mixed with crushed lemon balm. "Drink," he says. She accepts it. He leaves without adding her name to the list. Some forms of madness carry their own immunity. By midday, the rain slows to a drizzle. He visits the fishmonger's lane where the river cuts close to the city wall. The stench here is familiar brine decay and now ash. Boats lie moored but empty. The market stalls stand uncovered fish skeletons still dangling from rusted hooks. A man lies beneath one of the tables wrapped in fishing nets, murmuring about tides that never come back. The doctor kneels, feels the man's forehead, warm, fevered. He cuts away the netting, pours a few drops of vinegar into the man's mouth. The man coughs, whispers, "Am I still on the water?" The doctor answers, "Not yet." He stays until the man sleeps, then moves on. That afternoon he passes the orphanage. Its door is open. Inside, a priest wipes the floor with vinegar, humming something tuneless. A dozen children sit in silence, eyes wide, hands folded. "They haven't eaten," the priest says. "The baker didn't return." The doctor leaves 3 coins. "Send someone to the East Quarter. There's still bread there." The priest nods. One child stands. "Are you deaf?" she asks. He lowers to one knee. "No." "Then why does everyone go quiet when you come?" He thinks. "Because I listen." She stares, then slowly nods. He stands, and the priest guides the children into another room. Outside, the clouds begin to break, just slightly. A pale shaft of sun touches the street. It doesn't warm, but it glows. Back at his quarters, he unwraps the girl's satchel. He replaces the old herbs in his mask with hers. Lavender, rosemary, garlic. Then writes, "Today 9 visits, 2 gone, 1 priest still sweeping, 1 small kindness." He hesitates, then adds, "The rain washed nothing away, but it reminded us we are not yet ash." He leans back, removes the mask, listens to the wind. For the first time in days, it carries no bells, only breath. Only breath, Part 9. The city wakes slower now, not from peace but fatigue. The plague has carved away urgency. What's left is habit, quiet motion, silent prayers, shutters that creak open just wide enough for eyes, then close again like the blinking of stone faces. The doctor walks with his usual rhythm boots, tapping mask forward, the smell of garlic and rosemary mixing with morning soot. Today the list is shorter, but the silence deeper. Too many doors have stopped creaking. His first stop is a boarding house, once filled with traveling merchants. Now only 2 rooms are occupied. In the first, he finds an elderly woman knitting with trembling hands. Her breathing is labored, her skin pale but unblemished. She does not speak, only looks at him with mild recognition, as if she's seen his face in a dream. He touches her wrist, gently checking her pulse, slower than it should be, but steady. On the nightstand is a piece of folded parchment, a letter she never sent, addressed to someone named Isabeau. He doesn't read it. He leaves it there. Some words are not meant for the living. In the second room, he finds a young man lying on the floor beside his bed, still clutching a satchel. His fingers are curled tight, his face locked in pain. Judging by the blood around his nose and the purple marks on his chest, the sickness took him fast. The doctor closes the satchel. Inside, dried figs, a rosary, and a small carved wooden horse. He places the horse on the nightstand beside the man's head and draws the curtains closed. Back in the street, a small group gathers around a wagon. A woman stands in its center, shouting about miracles. She holds up a jar filled with dark green paste. Wolfsbane and ash, blessed by relics, heals, swelling, drives out the rot. The people listen, desperate for anything. The doctor approaches, says nothing, only holds up one gloved hand. The woman hesitates. He lifts the jar, opens, it sniffs. Camphor, mold, clay. He seals it again, sets it down, turns and walks away. Behind him, the crowd begins to disperse. Even false hope has its limits. In the apothecary district, he checks in on an old colleague, a retired doctor named Brain, who once lectured on herbs and anatomy. Brain hasn't left his study in weeks. He meets the doctor at the door, wrapped in furs, eyes darting. "Have you seen the boils behind the ears? They're black now, not blue. They change." "Yes," the doctor says. "I've tried onion poultices, horse bile, even crushed silver. Nothing holds." "I know." Brain leans against the wall, exhausted. "I once believed we were the future, that we would cure death like we mend broken glass." The doctor looks at him. "We were taught to believe that." Brain chuckles. "Fools, all of us." Before leaving, the doctor hands him a small bag of dried sage and hyssop. "It won't heal," he says, "but it might help you sleep." Brain nods. "I dream in Latin now," he mutters. "It's always wrong." That afternoon, the doctor walks past the watchtower. On the wall, someone has painted a symbol, a circle with a horizontal line through it. He's seen it before in other cities. It means quarantine. But it also means, do not look for us. We are already gone. He records it. By late day, he visits the infirmary once more. 3 new cases, one a baker's son, another a widow from the eastern quarter. The last is a foreigner, a sailor brought inland weeks ago, feverish and silent. The boy's fever breaks during his visit. The widow does not speak. The sailor mutters in a tongue the doctor doesn't understand. The nun tending to them asks, "How many more will come?" The doctor answers, "Fewer, but not because the plague ends." She understands. That evening, the sky turns red for a brief moment. He walks to the edge of the city where the trees begin. There he finds a man digging a shallow grave with his bare hands. "For my wife," he says. The doctor looks around. No body. "She will come soon," the man whispers. "She just hasn't told me yet." The doctor places a hand on his shoulder. "You'll dig it again when the time comes, in the right place." The man nods and keeps digging. The doctor walks back slowly past empty streets and shuttered doors, past walls marked with signs and prayers, past the window with the doll still hanging. In his room, he writes, "Today, 3 deaths, 2 recoveries, 1 letter unsent, 1 grave dug too soon. He pauses. Then, we record what we can. The rest is swallowed by silence. He closes the book and lets the quiet come in. Part 10. At dawn, the air is sharp with frost. A thin white film coats the rooftops and window ledges, and the smoke from distant chimneys rises in slow, fragile spirals. The plague has not spared the weather. It too feels heavy, drawn out, unmoving, suspended in waiting. The doctor dons his mask slowly this morning. His movements lack urgency. There are no bells anymore, only lists. Today he is summoned to a barber-surgeon shop on the edge of the market, a place where healing and butchery sit uncomfortably close. The building is marked with a faded pole, red and white spirals almost worn to wood. Inside the floor is slick with water and blood, the smell a thick blend of iron and vinegar. A young apprentice greets him with nervous hands. Master Galt's taken ill, won't leave the basement. Keeps saying his tools are cursed. The doctor descends carefully, stone steps. A candle flickers near the doorway. Inside the cellar, the barber-surgeon sits on a stool, gripping a bone saw in both hands. His beard is soaked with sweat. His eyes shine with fever. They scream, he says without looking up. Even when they're dead, I hear them. The doctor approaches, kneels, slowly checks for swelling. It's there, hidden beneath the collar. He lifts the man's wrist. The pulse is fast, erratic. You must lie down, the doctor says. Galt looks at him, dazed. They said bloodletting cures everything. But what if it lets in more than it lets out? The doctor removes the saw from his hands. He places it carefully on the table. I'll return, he says. Outside, the apprentice waits. The doctor hands him a cloth pouch. Steep this in wine. Make him drink. Do not let him cut again. The boy nods. He does not ask how long his master has. By late morning, the doctor reaches the tannery district. The workers here have mostly vanished. The ones who remain are skeletal with exhaustion. One man lies beneath a tarp skin, raw fingers blackened not from the plague but from the dye he never stopped using. He wouldn't rest, another worker says. Said if he stopped, the rot would catch him. The doctor kneels. There is no breath left in the man's chest. He closes the man's eyes and leaves behind a strip of clean linen. The worker stares at it, unsure what to do. In the next quarter, he visits a widow's home. He's been here before 3 weeks past when her husband died. She had insisted she would survive, that the saints would keep her hands strong. Now she sits alone on the stoop, holding a rosary with trembling fingers. I can't feel my toes, she says softly. He helps her inside. The floor is swept. The room smells of rosemary and old candles. She has prepared a tonic on the hearth, rosewater thyme wine, weak but meaningful. He tests her pulse, still strong. He feels her forehead, no fever yet. She looks at him with tired eyes. If I don't make it, she says, burn the rosary, don't bury it with me. He nods. Promise me. I do. She closes her eyes. He leaves her with 2 coins and a handful of dried marjoram. The scent is sharp, familiar, clean. In the early afternoon, he walks past the university gate. The halls are silent. Books sit abandoned on long benches, pages curling from damp. He passes the anatomy theater where he once watched a surgeon argue that the soul resided in the liver. No one argues anymore. Outside, he sees a student no older than 16 writing on the wall with charcoal. The boy startles as the doctor approaches. I only wanted to remember, he says. The doctor examines the markings. A poem half written, something about breath and broken windows. He nods. Finish it, he says. The boy stares, then keeps writing. As the sun dips, the doctor returns toward the river. There, an old woman boils rags in a cauldron over a fire pit. For my son, she says. He's gone, but I can't throw his clothes away. He sits beside her in silence. She adds mint to the water. The smell helps, she says. He watches the steam rise. Then after some time stands. Before he leaves, she hands him a bundle. For you. Inside a square of clean cloth, a pinch of cinnamon, a tiny carved cross. He nods once. That evening, back in his room, he places the bundle on the windowsill beside the girl's herbs from days before. Then he writes, "Today 6 ill, 2 dead, 1 fevered saw, 1 boiling memory." He pauses. Then adds, "The world still gives, even while it takes." He leans back. The candle gutters low, and somewhere outside someone is still writing poetry on a wall. Part 11. The sky is the color of stone, a dull, unmoving gray that presses downward, flattening rooftops and weighing on every breath. There is no wind, no bird song, no church bells, just the creak of the doctor's boots and the steady beat of his cane against the cobbled road. The list in his pocket feels heavier today, not from length but from something else, a name near the top he recognizes. A village just outside the wall. He heads there first. The road is muddy from last night's rain. Wheel tracks lead to nowhere. The trees on either side lean with damp exhaustion. The village appears as a smudge of wood and stone in the distance. As he approaches, he knows something is wrong. No smoke from chimneys, no chickens in the yards, no footsteps in the mud. Just doors hanging open and windows wide. He steps inside the first house. A meal sits on the table untouched. Chairs pushed back. A coat dropped carelessly in the corner. He moves to the next house, and the next the same. The village has not died. It has disappeared. He marks each home with a chalk X as he goes, not out of protocol, but as a record for someone someday to know these places were not empty by chance. In the last house he finds a cat curled beside a cold hearth, mewing faintly. He pours a few drops of water into a bowl and leaves it. He walks back slower than usual. Some vanish quietly and some vanish all at once. At midday he stops at a well near the southern gate where a few townsfolk have gathered. A woman dips a bucket, eyes wary. A child holds a clay cup. They stare at him, not with fear, but with waiting. He fills his own cup, drinks, then nods. The gesture is small, but it breaks something. One of the women offers him a heel of bread. He takes it, tears it in half, hands it back. That's enough to make someone laugh. The sound is short, almost startled. But it lingers. He continues on. In the eastern quarter, he checks on the musician's wife. Her fever has broken. Her cheeks are pink. She sips broth from a chipped bowl. "You came back," she says. "I said I would." She smiles. Her fingers tap lightly on the bowl, a rhythm, a song she once knew. In the same quarter, he visits a family he hadn't seen before. They arrived from another town, hiding symptoms, hoping for luck. It did not come. The father is gone. The mother lies in the loft, breathing ragged. The 2 children sit outside on the steps, their hands clasped. "We burned the sheets," one says, like they said. He nods, leaves a bottle of clove oil for the girl. "Rub it on her hands," he says. "She'll get better." I don't know. They accept this. Children always do. As he leaves, the girl says the fire smelled like bread. He says nothing. In the square, someone has posted a new decree. No gatherings, no sermons, no street music. Underneath, someone has written in charcoal. No joy, no noise, no breath. He doesn't erase it. By late afternoon, he visits the burn yard. The workers are quieter than usual. One man leans on his shovel, staring into the flames. "She was my sister," he says. No one asks who. The doctor stands beside him until the fire dies low, then walks back alone. As he nears the gate, he hears something strange. Not a cough, not a cry. A whisper. Dozens of whispers. He turns the corner and sees them figures kneeling in the alleyway. Hooded, cloaked faces to the stone. Each one silent, each one unmoving. Flagellants. Again. They don't acknowledge him, don't chant, don't move, just kneel. He walks past their silence, louder than any prayer. That night in his room, he writes, "Today, one vanished village, 2 children waiting, 1 healed musician, 11 kneeling ghosts." Then, there are silences that echo louder than grief. He places the note from the girl the fire smelled like bread beside his candle. Then sleeps with his mask still in his lap. Part 12. The following morning begins with a shadow of ash drifting in the air, too fine to see, but it settles on the tongue. The doctor tightens the straps of his mask, feeling the faint pressure along his cheekbones, and steps out into a world quieter than before. The silence isn't peaceful, it is taut like stretched fabric waiting to tear. Today's list is short, but it includes a name he doesn't recognize, scribbled with urgency, circled twice. The address leads him to the old quarter near the north wall, where the buildings lean into one another like conspirators. He knocks on a door marked with both an oil smear and a strip of red ribbon. A nun answers her habit, damp with sweat, her hands red from scrubbing. "He's inside," she says. "We haven't told the others." He steps through the threshold into a room filled with incense, heavy and cloying. On a cot near the far window lies a man dressed in robes marked with a gold thread cross, a high priest or something close to it. His eyes are open, his breath is thin, his fingers twitch in patterns. On the floor beside him are 7 relics, each labeled with Latin inscriptions. Finger bones, splinters, a strip of cloth. The doctor kneels, checks the man's pulse, and looks up at the nun. "Where did he get these?" "Pilgrims brought them. He swore they'd protect the city." The doctor replaces 2 of the relics in a small chest and seals it shut. The priest's lips move. The doctor leans in. "Sanctus, Sanctus." He closes the man's eyes. "There is no protection in bone," he says softly. He leaves the room without ceremony. Outside, near the square, a small group of townspeople have gathered around a child selling charms. The boy is no older than 10, his fingers blackened from ink. He offers scraps of parchment with prayers scrawled in crooked Latin. "Wear it," he says. "It will keep you safe." One woman pays with a turnip. Another gives him a shoe. The doctor watches from the edge of the crowd, then steps forward. He buys one with a single coin. "Do they work?" he asks. The boy shrugs, "If you believe." The doctor tucks the parchment into his satchel. In the southern alley near the old grain store, he finds 2 corpses propped against a wall. A man and a woman, arms wrapped around one another. No signs of panic, no sign of a struggle, just 2 bodies that lean together as the light left them. Someone has placed a blanket over their legs and a loaf of bread on the ground before them. He removes his hat briefly, then marks the wall beside them. A single circle unbroken. He continues on. At the infirmary, he checks on the girl from the diary. She is awake now, pale but curious. Her hands twitch as if still drawing in her dreams. The nurse says she has begun to hum low and quiet. "She doesn't remember yesterday," the nurse says. "Maybe that's a blessing," the doctor replies. He leaves her a sprig of dried lavender and 2 small pebbles, one smooth, one rough. "She'll find meaning in them," he says. Outside, someone has posted a drawing on the infirmary gate. It shows a figure in a long cloak and beaked mask with wings made of feathers and smoke. Above it, written in charcoal, "Crow or angel who walks among us." The doctor doesn't tear it down. By dusk, he arrives at the fire pit. A child stands beside it alone, holding a doll wrapped in cloth. "She doesn't want to go," the girl says. The doctor kneels. She already has. The child nods, then lets go. The doll falls into the flame. The doctor watches until the cloth turns black. He walks home slowly. The streets are nearly still. Even the rats have learned to move quietly. In his room, he unfolds the parchment charm. The ink is smudged, the Latin misspelled. But he places it on the shelf beside the girl's herbs, the old woman's cross, and the child's cinnamon bundle. Then he writes, "Today one fallen priest, two held in each other's arms, one girl who hums, one charm I chose to keep." He adds, "There are no holy relics, but there are things that hold meaning, and sometimes that is enough." The candle burns low. He lets it, and listens to the silence that no longer frightens him. Part 13. The wind returns with a sigh. It carries the smell of damp stone and something fainter beneath it. Old smoke-dried herbs, the distant trace of iron. The doctor rises before first light as always. The mask feels heavier this morning, not physically but with what it means. He opens his ledger, reviews the day's notes, and sees a familiar name from early in the outbreak, an herbalist who once boasted that she would outlive the plague by reason and root alone. Her shop stands at the edge of the eastern garden district, where vines creep over crumbling walls and potted thyme still struggles to survive in cracked clay jars. He pushes the door open gently. The bell above the frame rings sharp clear out of place. Inside the shelves are bare. Dried stalks hang where bundles once were. A mortar lies tipped on the table pestle beside it. He finds her in the back room, seated upright, back against the wall, a sprig of rosemary still held in her hand. Her eyes are closed, her face peaceful. He kneels, checks her pulse already still. There are no signs of struggle. No marks. Only one thing catches his attention. A book opened beside her, a page half written. "When this ends, may something softer begin." He copies the line into his own book. Then he leaves the rosemary on the table untouched. In the marketplace, a man is shouting. Not selling, not praying, shouting. They said it was the rats, then the air, now the stars. He waves a cloth stained with ink covered in symbols and charts. They blamed the tail of the comet. They said we were warned. The doctor watches. A woman nearby mutters he lost all five, then started watching the sky. The man drops the cloth, sinks to the ground, and weeps into his knees. The doctor walks on. Past the butcher's stall, past the dried fountains, past the stable that now houses two sick families. He reaches the canal where the water once fed the baths. Now it stands still, green, unmoving. A boy wades in up to his knees, trying to catch frogs with a tin bucket. He wears no shoes. His legs are covered in welts. The doctor approaches slowly. The boy freezes. "I only wanted to hear them sing," he says. "They don't sing anymore." The doctor hands him a small square of cloth. "Wrap your feet, then go home." The boy looks at the water one last time, then nods. He walks away without looking back. Later that day, the doctor stops by a mill on the western edge of town. The wheel no longer turns. The river is too low. Inside, sacks of grain lie scattered, gnawed by rats, abandoned in haste. In one corner, a man and a woman sit back to back, faces pale, sweat beating at their temples. They do not speak, they simply breathe. The doctor gives them vinegar cloths, sets down a pitcher of water, marks the door with a line. They watch him leave, their hands almost touching. At sunset, he returns to the alley near the infirmary. The drawing of the winged plague doctor remains, but someone has added a second figure beside it, smaller, reaching upward without a mask. Beneath it, a new line, even crows grieve. In his room, the candle is already burning. He opens his journal. Today, one silent herbalist, one screaming stargazer, one frogless canal, two hands almost meeting. Then, there is nothing more human than wanting to understand what cannot be named. He glances at the charm the boy gave him. It still rests on the shelf, crooked, smudged. He does not straighten it. He lets it lean, and sits beside it until the silence wraps around him like a shroud. Part 13. The wind returns with a sigh. It carries the smell of damp stone and something fainter beneath it, old smoke, dried herbs, the distant trace of iron. The doctor rises before first light as always. The mask feels heavier this morning, not physically but with what it means. He opens his ledger, reviews the day's notes, and sees a familiar name from early in the outbreak, an herbalist who once boasted that she would outlive the plague by reason and root alone. Her shop stands at the edge of the eastern garden district, where vines creep over crumbling walls, and potted thyme still struggles to survive in cracked clay jars. He pushes the door open gently. The bell above the frame rings sharp, clear, out of place. Inside, the shelves are bare. Dried stalks hang where bundles once were. A mortar lies tipped on the table pestle beside it. He finds her in the back room, seated upright back against the wall, a sprig of rosemary still held in her hand. Her eyes are closed, her face peaceful. He kneels, checks her pulse, already still. There are no signs of struggle, no marks. Only one thing catches his attention. A book opened beside her, a page half written. When this ends, may something softer begin. He copies the line into his own book. Then he leaves the rosemary on the table untouched. In the marketplace, a man is shouting, not selling, not praying, shouting. They said it was the rats, then the air, now the stars. He waves a cloth stained with ink covered in symbols and charts. They blamed the tail of the comet. They said we were warned. The doctor watches. A woman nearby mutters he lost all 5, then started watching the sky. The man drops the cloth, sinks to the ground, and weeps into his knees. The doctor walks on. Past the butcher's stall, past the dried fountains, past the stable that now houses 2 sick families. He reaches the canal where the water once fed the baths. Now it stands still, green, unmoving. A boy wades in up to his knees, trying to catch frogs with a tin bucket. He wears no shoes. His legs are covered in welts. The doctor approaches slowly. The boy freezes. I only wanted to hear them sing, he says. They don't sing anymore. The doctor hands him a small square of cloth. Wrap your feet, then go home. The boy looks at the water one last time, then nods. He walks away without looking back. Later that day, the doctor stops by a mill on the western edge of town. The wheel no longer turns. The river is too low. Inside, sacks of grain lie scattered, gnawed by rats abandoned in haste. In one corner, a man and a woman sit back to back, faces pale, sweat beating at their temples. They do not speak, they simply breathe. The doctor gives them vinegar cloths, sets down a pitcher of water, marks the door with a line. They watch him leave their hands almost touching. At sunset, he returns to the alley near the infirmary. The drawing of the winged plague doctor remains, but someone has added a second figure beside it, smaller, reaching upward without a mask. Beneath it, a new line even crows grieve. In his room, the candle is already burning. He opens his journal. Today, one silent herbalist, one screaming stargazer, one frogless canal, 2 hands almost meeting. Then, there is nothing more human than wanting to understand what cannot be named. He glances at the charm the boy gave him. It still rests on the shelf, crooked, smudged. He does not straighten it. He lets it lean, and sits beside it until the silence wraps around him like a shroud. Part 15. By morning, the smell of smoke is stronger than before. It doesn't rise from any single fire, but seeps from every corner of the city. It clings to walls, hair the undersides of shutters. The doctor steps into it as though into a shroud. The air is thick, not just with soot, but with the heaviness of things unspoken. Today he has no list, no request. Just a knock at his door before dawn, and a breathless voice whispering, "Come to the South Quarter. They're burning everything." He walks quickly, cane-steady boots damp from the morning's condensation. The closer he gets, the more the scent sharpens, not just smoke now, but the sharp tang of resin flesh-scorched cloth. A crowd gathers around the alleyway held back by 2 city guards. Beyond them, flames roar from a half-collapsed tenement. "They started it themselves," one guard says. "Blocked the exits. Said it would be cleaner this way." The doctor steps past him without a word. Inside the alley, ash floats like snow. The door has fallen inward. Furniture smolders in heaps. In the center of the courtyard, a circle of bodies remains, blackened knees folded, heads bowed. Around them are sigils drawn in white chalk, still untouched by the flames. He walks through slowly. There is no one left alive. But someone survived long enough to place a scrap of cloth over the youngest child's face before the fire consumed it. He kneels, stares at the symbols. They're not religious, not magical, just lines and arcs, a language born from desperation. He stands, turns, walks out. "They made no sound," the guard says. The doctor nods. Silence has become a form of protest. In the square, he finds the man who once cried over his comet charts. Today he is painting. On the side of the bakery, using soot and water, he draws 2 figures, both in beaked masks, both surrounded by stars, but one is kneeling holding a candle. The other, wings outstretched, is watching from a rooftop. The man sees the doctor and pauses. "I had a brother once," he says. "He believed in angels. I didn't, but maybe I was wrong." The doctor doesn't answer. Instead, he watches as the man paints the candle's flame in bright yellow, the only color in the mural. Near midday, he visits the infirmary again. The musician's wife is sitting up now, playing a small pipe flute someone carved for her. The notes are broken but intentional. The girl who hums joins in, tapping her foot. No words, just rhythm. The nurse smiles. They asked if they could perform tomorrow. For who? For themselves. He nods. On his way out, a boy hands him a folded slip of parchment. "Inside, you are not the plague, you are the memory." There is no signature. He keeps it. Near the river banks, he stops at the bench where the herbalist used to sell bundles. Someone has left 3 bundles wrapped in linen, hyssop, thyme, and sage. A note sits beneath them. "Take what you need, leave what you can." He takes none, but adds a piece of cinnamon bark to the pile. By sundown, he returns to the place where the fire burned that morning. Only embers remain now, no crowd, no guards. Just the chalk sigil still faintly visible in the soot. He sits on the stone step beside the ruin and watches the sky darken. No stars tonight, only smoke. In his room, he writes, "Today, 1 fire circle. 2 players without an audience. 3 bundles left without a name." He adds, "They burned to leave a message no one could rewrite." Then, and in the ruins, others begin to sing. He rests his pen, listens to the night, and for the first time in days, the silence does not feel empty. Part 16. The wind shifts overnight. By morning, it blows from the west, carrying with it the scent of the sea and something cleaner, cooler. But the doctor doesn't believe in omens anymore. Wind is wind. Death is death. And this day, like every other, begins in motion. He walks north along the riverbank where barges used to bring grain. Now only 2 remain moored, waterlogged, useless. As he passes them, he sees a figure crouched beneath a broken canopy. A girl, maybe 13, scraping mold from old wood with a stone. He kneels nearby. She doesn't look up. "My mother says if we clean what the rats touched, we can make things new again." "Where is your mother now?" She shrugs. She's cleaning the church. He offers her a strip of cloth soaked in vinegar. "For your hands." She takes it silently, rubs her palms raw. He continues on. In the upper quarter, he's called to a baker's home. The same family he saw from a distance many weeks ago, the daughter who drew flowers, the wife who never answered the door. Today the husband is sick. He lies in bed drenched in sweat, face pale, breath shallow. The wife meets the doctor with eyes that are tired, not panicked. "I've boiled everything," she says, "the blankets, the knives, the bread pans." He examines the man, fevered but no swelling, yet he leaves a small bottle of sage wine. It's all he can offer. The wife stops him at the door. "Will I lose him?" He looks at her for a long moment. "I don't know," he says. She nods. That answer has become the closest thing to truth anyone gives anymore. By noon he checks on the woman who spoke to him of relics. Her house is empty now. A wax seal on the door, the red ribbon gone. Inside, faint lines remain on the walls, symbols brushed with charcoal, half erased by time and smoke. He finds one final mark by the hearth, a handprint, small, pressed into ash. He copies it into his journal, not as a sketch, but as a line. A single hand remains. Outside, the children have begun to draw again. On the sides of homes, in the dust, on windows with their fingers. Some draw angels. Some draw stars. Some just leave shapes that no one understands. But they draw. In the narrow alley by the carpenter's shop, he finds a boy making music with nails and a plank of wood. The sound is uneven, hollow, but it holds rhythm. He taps out patterns and hums beneath his breath. "You remember songs?" the doctor asks. "No," the boy replies, "I just invent them." He leaves him a piece of parchment. "For lyrics," he says. At the gate near the field, a traveler tries to enter. The guards argue. She wears a veil, carries a baby. She says nothing, only gestures. The doctor steps forward, lifts a hand. The guards let her through. He examines the child, sleeping, cool to the touch. The woman bows, lips trembling. He nods. Sometimes compassion needs no language. That evening he walks past the courtyard where the nun once lived. Her candles are still burning on the sill. In their glow he sees footprints, fresh, small, walking in circles. He leaves a sprig of basil by the door, then returns home. Tonight he unwraps the drawing the flower girl gave him, crumpled, faded, the ink barely holding. He pins it to the wall. It doesn't look like a flower anymore. More like a sun or a face, or both. He writes, "Today one girl scraping mold, one man fevered, one hand in ash, one melody without memory." Then the world is beginning to create again, even as it crumbles. He closes the book, and this time before sleep he lights 2 candles instead of one. One for the silence, and one for what might follow it. Part 17. The city breathes differently now. Not healed, never healed, but slower, quieter, as if exhaustion has settled into the bricks. The doctor notices it as soon as he steps outside. There are fewer birds circling the rooftops. The bells are still silent. Yet the air carries not only the smell of rot and smoke, but the faintest trace of bread. He walks to the southern lane where the bread ovens once roared each morning. A boy runs past him carrying a bundle wrapped in linen. Steam curls from the edge. Someone is baking again. The baker's daughter stands in the doorway of her home, hands dusted with flour. She meets the doctor's gaze and nods once. Her father stands behind her, leaning on the doorframe, pale but upright. He lifts a hand, not a wave. A quiet offering of acknowledgement. The doctor nods in return, no words, just the understanding that something held. He moves on. In the courtyard near the chapel, he finds the musician's wife playing again. The girl who hums sits beside her, tapping a drum made from an overturned water bucket. A few others have gathered to listen. One of the nuns stands with folded hands, eyes closed. It isn't a performance. It's a breath made audible. He leaves a coin on the edge of the fountain and walks away before the last note fades. That afternoon he's called to a house by the river. A midwife has fallen ill. She lies on a bed of straw covered in layers of quilts, her breathing short but even. Her daughter tends to her eyes swollen from lack of sleep. She wouldn't stop helping, the girl whispers, even when her hands shook. The doctor kneels, examines her closely. No black marks, no swelling, just heat, just the early signs. He prescribes wine boiled with bay leaves and cloves, then reaches into his satchel and places an old charm on the table, the parchment given to him by the boy in the alley. He has carried it long enough. "Hang it where she can see it," he says. The daughter nods. In the western quarter, he meets a former gravedigger, now blind in one eye, who speaks to the air and carves faces into bits of bark. He hands the doctor one, a small wooden carving of a masked figure, its face split between shadow and light. "I dreamed of this," he says. "You were standing where the moon touched the bones." The doctor accepts it without question. He places it gently into his coat. By sunset, he visits the market square. A woman sings. Her voice is rough, imperfect, but no one tells her to stop. She sings of the past, of wheat fields of rain, of names long buried, and though only 3 people remain to hear her, she sings like the city still listens. That night in his quarters, he lights the second candle again, then writes, "Today one melody shared, one man carving memory, one charm returned to its purpose, one loaf of bread still warm." And then, "The world is trying to remember what it means to be alive." He unpacks the carving, sets it beside the relics on his shelf. Outside the city creaks, but inside the light holds steady. And for the first time, the silence hums with hope. Part 18. The first bird call breaks the air just before sunrise. It's faint, half question, half declaration, but unmistakably alive. The doctor hears it from his window, pausing with one hand on the strap of his mask. For a moment he doesn't move, just listens. One note, then another, a third almost shy. The silence answers with nothing, but the sound stays. He steps into the street. The morning feels not new, but softer. The air still carries the bite of ash and damp, but beneath it is something cleaner, like water over stone. Today he is not summoned. He simply walks. Along the path near the old bell tower, he finds a boy drawing circles in the dirt with a stick. The same boy who once offered lyrics. Now he draws eyes, pairs of them, all different sizes. "They're watching," he says, not looking up, "the ones who aren't here anymore." Do they speak? Only when it's quiet. The doctor doesn't interrupt. He leaves a piece of chalk beside the boy and continues on. In the upper district, he checks on the tailor's widow. Her door is open. She sits outside, stitching a patch onto a child's cloak. "I'm not sewing for coin anymore," she says, "only warmth." He examines the stitches. They're uneven but strong. She doesn't ask about the fever. She doesn't speak of loss. She simply works. Further east, he passes the garden wall where ivy once choked every stone. Now the vines are trimmed, the stones clean. Someone has begun planting again onions, it looks like, or maybe garlic. A girl hums as she digs dirt under her nails, sleeves rolled high. Father says we need roots. The doctor nods. He cannot argue. At midday, he finds a gathering, not a crowd, not a mob, just people, sitting near the fountain, sharing bread, passing a bowl of water. No one speaks loudly. No one cries. They sit with the quiet patience of those who have forgotten how to hurry. He doesn't join them, but he sits on the edge, watches, takes note of the way the light hits the bricks. Later he returns to the old street where the drawings had once covered the walls. Most are faded now. Rain has smudged them, hands have wiped them away. But one remains sharp, dark, recent, a pair of wings stretched wide, and beneath them a phrase in careful script. Some birds never flew, but they still watched the sky, He copies the words into his book, then walks to the infirmary. Inside, the girl who hums now teaches others to clap along. The musician's wife nods the rhythm, her eyes closed, head swaying. A boy keeps time on the table with a wooden spoon. In the corner, the nun lights a row of candles and whispers no prayer, only names. The doctor leaves a vial of clean oil for the lamps and touches the girl's shoulder briefly. She looks up. "Will we play again tomorrow?" "Yes." He believes it. As evening falls, he makes his last visit to the graveyard. Not to count, not to record, but to remember. He walks the rows of marked stones and unmarked mounds. At one he stops, leaves a sprig of mint. No name carved and no word spoken. Back in his quarters, he removes the mask, sets it down, wipes the glass lenses with care, then opens his journal. Today, no death, 2 new plantings, 1 phrase on a wall, 1 bird song before dawn. He adds, "They do not celebrate, but they endure, and in endurance something sacred stirs." He closes the book, blows out the second candle, and sleeps without dreams. Only breath, only stillness. Part 19. The morning begins with footsteps, small, deliberate ones outside his door. When the doctor opens it, no one is there. Only a strip of linen tied to the handle, dyed in 3 colors, blue, red, and green. There's no note, no message, just the cloth fluttering faintly in the wind. He folds it gently, places it inside his satchel, and begins his rounds without waiting for instruction. The first stop is the gatehouse. 2 guards sit playing dice with worn stones, their armor dusty, their hands too thin for war. One nods to him as he passes. "No one's come in. No one's gone out," he says. The doctor replies, "That's a kind of peace." The guard snorts but doesn't disagree. He walks toward the baker's street. The oven is lit again. The daughter places loaves in neat rows on a cloth-covered table. Behind her, her father grinds herbs into flour. The doctor watches as she ties each loaf with a strip of twine and writes a name on parchment tags. He doesn't ask what the names mean. Some acts of remembrance are best left unspoken. At the chapel, a priest cleans the altar with a wet cloth, not as ritual but as reverence. He does not notice the doctor enter. When he does, he smiles faintly. Still no cure. The doctor shakes his head. Still no miracles. The priest replies, "Then I'll keep polishing." Outside, a child draws a circle in the dust with her foot. She glances up, squints at the beaked mask, and runs to the far end of the square. He doesn't follow. She stops at the steps of a shuttered inn and places a pebble on the top stair. Then another, 1 for each day perhaps. By midday, the doctor walks the length of the aqueduct wall. A boy is there whittling wood into sticks, humming to himself. "For the rats," he says. "Traps," the doctor asks. "No, markers, to remind them where they've already been." The doctor leaves a coin beside the boy. "Then you're a cartographer." The boy grins. Near the edge of the marketplace, he sees a fire pit no longer for burning bodies. Now it warms soup in a blackened pot. A woman stirs, adding dried roots and something green. A few others sit nearby, each with a chipped bowl. One waves the doctor over, but he shakes his head. He isn't hungry, just present. At the orphanage, the nun who once feared silence now reads aloud. The children gather close. Her voice is soft but steady. The story is about a bird with no feathers who teaches others how to fly. When she reaches the end, one child asks, "Did the bird ever fly?" The nun closes the book. "No," she says, but she saw further than the rest. The doctor leaves a wrapped packet of dried mint on the sill, for breath, for memory. In the evening, he returns to the boarding house where the elderly woman once waited with her letter. A new tenant lives there now, a weaver who repairs blankets for those still sleeping on stone. She shows him her work. Some pieces are patched from old cloaks and abandoned robes. One stitch catches his eye thread made of red and green linen twisted together. He does not say what it reminds him of. She offers him tea. He declines. She says, "Next time, then." As twilight deepens, he walks to the chapel garden. The vines are climbing again. Someone has tied ribbons to the branches. Each bears a word: hope, remain, still, light. He adds one silently. No ink, just a knot, then returns home. In his room, he removes the mask with care. It creaks slightly. He sets it beside the wooden carving and the charm now faded but intact. Then he writes, "Today 0 deaths, 1 story told, 4 names on bread, 1 child mapping the paths of rats." Then, no songs were sung today, but still something was heard. He leans back, listens, and hears nothing but the breath of a city remembering how to be alive. Part 20. The city doesn't wake, it exhales. As if for the first time in weeks it allows itself a breath unshaped by fear. The doctor feels it in the pause between footsteps, in the way shutters open just a little wider, in the smell of wet earth after last night's rain. Not safety, but less dread. He walks south past the schoolhouse. Inside, the doors are propped open. A man stands before a chalkboard, not teaching, just drawing. Circles, arrows, a wheel. The few children seated on benches aren't watching him. They're drawing too. Quiet, focused, as if the act itself holds the world together. The doctor leaves a sprig of mint on the steps and moves on. He visits the herbalist's garden next. Once overgrown and forgotten, it's now tended by a group of women, sleeves rolled high, hands in the dirt. One offers him a handful of thyme. "For courage," she says. He tucks it into his coat pocket without a word. By late morning, he reaches a row of tenements where an old man leans out a window and asks, "Is it true they're reopening the fountain?" The doctor replies, "There's water again." The man smiles. "Then maybe I'll bathe." The comment is half joke, half dream. In a narrow street behind the carpenter's alley, he hears music again. Not flute or voice this time, but rhythm wood tapping on stone, hands clapping in slow, steady time. He finds a group of boys seated in a circle, drumming with spoons and bones. A woman hums along. They nod as he passes, but do not stop. They are playing for no one but themselves. At the infirmary, the musician's wife has begun to teach others. Her room is no longer just a cot and a chair, it's a gathering place. 2 children play the flute. 1 boy writes lyrics. Another girl sings softly, her voice thin but brave. The nurse says nothing, just watches. The doctor leaves behind a new sheet of parchment. Outside, the mural near the fountain has grown. Someone has painted a second figure beside the plague doctor, a child with a basket offering a sprig of sage. Above them, the words, "We don't forget. We begin." At midday, he visits the outskirts of the city wall. There, a man digs not graves, but holes for planting. Fruit trees, he says. Fig if the soil still listens. The doctor kneels beside him, briefly places a dried seed in the man's palm. Then plant this. He doesn't say what it is. He returns along the aqueduct where the boy still marks paths for the rats. Today he's added ribbons to the sticks. Blue, yellow, gray. They need color, he says. So do we. In the late afternoon, he stops by the scribe's corner. The man who once wept over sky charts now writes poems on the wall. "Do you know if anyone will read them?" he asks. "They already are," the doctor replies. As dusk falls, he walks to the same fountain, the one the children once avoided. Now it flows slow, steady, pale water reflecting the fading light. A girl washes her hands in it, careful, deliberate. The sound is soft, sacred. He stands there longer than usual, listening to nothing but water, then walks back. In his room, the herbs are drying on the sill. The carving, the charm, the letters all still in place. He lights 2 candles, then writes, "Today 0 fevers, 3 new gardens, 1 child with color, 1 fountain returned to use." Then, the city does not heal. It remembers how to live. He closes the book, leaves the mask where it hangs, and falls asleep with the scent of time still in his hands. Part 21. The morning carries a stillness not of fear but of pause, not the silence of waiting for death but the kind that comes just before a door opens or a voice returns. The doctor rises with the light. No summons today, no list. He walks because walking has become part of remembering. Near the well, he finds 3 children drawing shapes in the dust with their fingers. They don't run when he approaches. One of them, the youngest, draws a perfect spiral and looks up. "It goes on forever," she says. He nods. Some things do. At the edge of the market, a woman sells cloth masks, simple, stitched with thread dyed in crushed herbs. Some are adorned with stars. Others have birds stitched into the corners. A boy beside her hands one to the doctor. "This one's for you. It's black with a green sprig sewn near the chin." He tucks it into his coat. Further on, the man who painted stars on the bakery has begun a new work, a river winding past homes filled not with water but hands reaching, waving, carrying. Above it he's written, "We are what we held on to." By midday the doctor reaches the chapel. It is open now, not for service, for stillness. A handful of people sit in silence scattered across the pews. A young man stands at the altar, not preaching, not reciting, just lighting candles one by one. Each flame catches with a soft pop like a memory reawakening. The doctor lights one too. He does not give it a name. Outside he passes the butcher's lane. The shop is open, but instead of meat, the counter holds jars of lentils, barley, dried herbs. A woman stands behind the table with a ledger. "It's not profit," she says, "it's trade." He leaves a strip of linen, and in return she hands him a pouch of dried figs. In the square, the girl with the doll sits on the steps of a well, combing its hair with her fingers. She hums a tune he's heard before something passed from house to house like a soft rumor. The doll wears a cloak made from ribbon. On its chest is stitched a single letter B. "Does it have a name?" he asks. The girl looks up. "Breath." He nods and keeps walking. At the pest house, only 3 beds are filled. The boy who once followed him with a bucket of water is now the one giving orders. He instructs an old man to rest a woman to drink slowly. When he sees the doctor, he grins. "I kept your cloth," he says. "It's hanging in the window." The doctor glances up. The square of linen with the 3 colors, the one from his door weeks ago, now flutters like a banner. He says nothing, only presses a hand to the boy's shoulder. Later, near the aqueduct, he finds 2 people repairing a broken section of the wall. Not for water, just for structure, for memory. The stones still hold, one says. He nods. They always did. As evening creeps in, he stands on the ridge above the city. The rooftops below no longer look broken. They look lived in. Smoke curls from more chimneys. A child's laughter rises faintly over the wind. It fades, but doesn't vanish. He walks home slowly. In his room, the mask rests beside the folded cloth from the child beside the carving. The charm, the mint, the stitched figure. A collection not of relics but echoes. He writes, "Today 0 illness, 1 stitched mask, 1 banner in the wind, 1 doll named Breath." Then, the world is not healed, but it is no longer only suffering. He places the dried figs on the sill and lets the evening hold him gently. Part 22. The city no longer hides from the morning. Shutters open without fear. Doors creak for the sake of fresh air, not panic. Even the pigeons have returned, bold enough to peck at crumbs near the square fountain. The doctor steps outside and feels something unusual in the air, not warmth, not safety, but rhythm, a pulse beneath the stone. He begins with the northern row, where once the coughing was loudest. Today it is quiet, not with emptiness, but with sleep. A woman sweeps her doorstep with deliberate care. She nods at the doctor and keeps sweeping. Behind her, a child waters a patch of weeds growing from a cracked stone pot. He pours slowly with both hands. At the scribe's alley, the wall is nearly covered now. Verses, drawings, names, some written in chalk, others carved with a nail. The man who once cried over stars sits cross-legged painting a tree with gold leaf. "It's not real gold," he says, "but it's how I remember sunlight." The doctor watches him for a moment, then takes a small strip of paper from his satchel and adds a line beneath the tree. Survival is sacred. He walks east toward the river. The water runs slower these days, but it runs. A boy stands knee-deep, throwing pebbles in patterns, 3 left, 2 right, 1 behind. "I'm teaching the river to count," he says, "so it won't forget us." The doctor leaves him to his arithmetic. At the edge of the marketplace, a small gathering of women sits weaving strips of fabric together into long, narrow banners. Each piece comes from something lost: a shirt, a headscarf, a blanket. They do not speak. The fabric speaks for them. One hands the doctor a ribbon woven from violet and white. "For your mask," she says. He ties it around his arm instead. At the infirmary, the musician's wife plays her pipe slowly. The girl who once hummed now sings in a clear, fragile voice. Around them, more beds are empty than full. A young man hands out bowls of warm broth. A nurse counts spoons. The doctor places a small satchel of dried orange peel on the windowsill, for brightness, for breath. In the western quarter, he finds the candlemaker's daughter carving small wax figures. Not saints, not spirits, just people. Sitting, standing, holding hands. She melts the ends into coins, gives them to anyone who passes. "Carry one," she says. "It reminds you that you're still here." He takes one. It is soft in his palm. At dusk, he walks past the boarding house. A new child plays near the entrance, skipping between stones. She hums the same melody he heard from the girl at the infirmary. The song is traveling soft-footed, persistent. Near the well, he stops. The girl with the doll named Breath is not there, but her ribbon cloak remains tied to the post, fluttering in the wind. He doesn't touch it, just watches it move. Back in his quarters, the table is full now. Carvings, letters, cloth, seeds, chalk, a small wax figure, a paper bird folded by someone he never met. He lights 2 candles. The light spills over everything. Then he writes, "Today 0 flames, 1 ribbon offered, 1 river taught to count, 1 wax person who fits in the palm." Then, "The plague is not ended, but we have begun again." He sets down his pen, lets the candles burn low. And as night folds in around the city, he listens not for silence, but for the sound of breathing. Still steady, still shared. Part 23. The rooftops glisten with dew, not ash. The sky holds a soft blue haze that feels more like weather than warning. The doctor wakes before the bells, though they sometimes ring again now, and dresses with the familiar weight of cloak and mask. But today the weight is memory, not dread. His first steps lead him to the stone bench near the southern wall, where he once watched flames rise from a family's final ritual. Today the bench is dry. A pair of apples rests on the seat untouched. A note lies beneath them. Take what you need. Leave what you can. He leaves a strip of sage, takes one apple, walks on. Near the schoolhouse, children run. Not far, not loud, but they run. Their laughter is sharp like something rediscovered. One skids to a halt as he sees the doctor, then offers him a crude sketch charcoal on rough paper. A bird with outstretched wings. Is that you? The boy asks. The doctor studies the image, nods once. It could be. The boy smiles and runs to catch the others. At the cloth market, a woman has strung a line between two stalls. From it hang handkerchiefs embroidered with names. Some are elaborate, others barely legible. Above them a sign reads, "The ones who passed, the ones who held." She hands the doctor a blank square and a needle. "You've earned a stitch." He doesn't argue. He pierces the cloth once, just a single thread, and hands it back. Further east, the fountain flows steadily now. A man washes his hands, face drawn but clean. "Haven't felt water like this since my wedding," he says. The doctor nods. The man laughs once, brief and honest. In the alley behind the tannery, he finds a girl painting over a dark symbol someone once drew in fear. Her brush carries whitewash in long, deliberate strokes. "This wall remembers too much," she says. "I want it to forget." The doctor hands her a sprig of rosemary. Some things can fade, others must root. She places it behind her ear and keeps painting. At the old burial yard, grass has begun to sprout where the soil once smoked. The gravedigger who carved faces into bark now plants stakes along the edge, each topped with a ribbon, no names. "I don't mark them," he says. "They were here. That's enough." The doctor walks between the mounds. Some bear stones, some only dips in earth, but none are forgotten. He kneels at one place as the apple beside it presses a fingertip into the dirt, not to bury, just to touch. Later, near the carpenter's workshop, he sees a long plank mounted to the wall. Children have etched their names into it one after another in uneven letters. Above it, someone has carved, "We stayed." At the infirmary, the beds are empty. The instruments clean. The nurse has turned the room into a space for rest, no longer illness, just quiet. A girl plays softly by the window, humming a tune that no longer trembles. The doctor lights a candle there, for presence, not loss. That evening he passes the boy who taught the river to count. He's marking a tree now, drawing lines with chalk, 5 for today, 1 for tomorrow. "Do you think it sees me?" he asks. The doctor answers, "I think it's listening." Back in his room, he unfolds the sketch of the bird, places it beside the cloth square, then writes, "Today 0 fevers, 2 stitches, 1 apple shared, 1 tree marked with hope." Then, the ones who stayed did not survive untouched, but they left something that breathes. He blows out the candle, listens to the quiet, and for the first time the silence sounds full. Part 24. The first bell rings at dawn, just once. Not a warning, not mourning, just a note. A reminder that sound still belongs to the city. The doctor listens to it from his doorway, hands still adjusting the straps of his mask. For months, bells meant death. Now they simply mean time. He begins his walk along the eastern wall, where vines once crept without tending. Today he finds 2 elders trimming ivy with careful hands, chatting in low voices. One nods toward the doctor. "We thought we'd be buried beneath these," he says, "but they're still growing, so are we." The doctor leaves a satchel of time by their feet. The scent lifts easily into the morning air. At the plaza, a group of children gather around a chalk grid sketched on the stone. They play a version of hopscotch, but each square bears a word, "Hope Light, still remember." One child hops onto light and calls out, "This one feels warm." Another lands on remember and hums softly. The doctor watches without interrupting. Nearby, a woman ties strips of cloth to the spokes of an old wheel, spinning it with a wooden stick. Each turn makes a rustling sound, each flutter a different voice. Wind carries wishes, she says. I just help them move. She ties a new ribbon to the wheel and hands the doctor a blank one. He keeps it. He visits the former pest house, now empty. The boy who once followed him with water now carries a small notebook tracking herbs planted in the courtyard. Marjoram sprouting, he says. Mint, too. He points to a patch of dirt with a line of smooth stones bordering it. We're calling this the edge of forgetting. The doctor kneels, touches the soil, and leaves a seed he's carried since midwinter. By midday, he passes the sculptor's square. A woman chips away at marble with soft, precise taps. The statue is unfinished, just a pair of arms reaching upward. She glances at the doctor. I don't need a face, she says. I just want the gesture to hold. He nods and places a carved charm at the base, a figure with no eyes, no name. At the bakery, flour dusts the window again. Loaves rest on the sill. One bears an inscription baked into the crust. We are still warm. The doctor leaves a coin and breaks off a piece. It crumbles softly in his hand. He eats in silence, standing. That afternoon he walks the lane behind the library. A young girl recites from a torn page seated on a step with two others beside her. The words are uneven. She makes some up. But the rhythm is right. Do you want to hear the rest, she asks. The doctor sits beside her briefly and listens. Later he visits the wall where the poem tree was painted. Someone has added birds, dozens of them perched along the branches, each facing a different direction. Underneath a line has been added. They came back. At sunset he passes the fountain. A boy drops a coin into the water, for nothing, he says, just to do it. The doctor smiles behind the mask. Back in his room, he ties the blank ribbon to the window latch. Not as a symbol, just as thread. He writes, Today 0 sickness, 3 growing patches, 1 faceless statue, 1 wheel of wishes. Then, there is no return to before, but something else has begun to take its place. He folds the ribbon around his journal's spine, lets it rest there soft and unremarkable, and breathes into a room no longer made only of silence. Part 25. The sun rises without urgency. Light spills into alleys like water over worn stone, seeping gently, touching everything without demand. The doctor wakes before the city stirs. Not out of habit, but from something deeper curiosity. The mask sits beside him on the table, not as armor, but as memory. He picks it up slowly, not to wear, but to hold. He steps outside. The air is crisp and carries the scent of drying leaves of water of bread. He walks without direction, letting the city speak its path. In the lane behind the cloth dyers, he finds a child painting stones, red, blue, green, each marked with a single word: stay, try, look, here. She lines them along the edge of the path, one after another, like stepping stones for the uncertain. When the doctor kneels to read one, she whispers, That one's yours. The stone reads still. He carries it in his hand as he walks. At the edge of the carpenter's square, a man builds a bench from broken doors. He sands the edges carefully, fitting each plank like it remembers its former frame. They all belong to houses that lost someone, he says. Now they'll hold the living. The doctor leaves a bundle of dried lavender in the corner seam. At the chapel garden, a woman plays a lyre. The melody is slow, imperfect, but not shy. 2 others gather beside her, not to sing, but to listen. The doctor doesn't enter, just watches from the gate. Near midday, he walks to the far north end of the city where the path slopes downward to the old fields. He hasn't come here in weeks. The grass is short but growing. At the center, someone has placed a single chair, wooden, cracked, but upright. A ribbon hangs from its back. The wind stirs it gently. He sits. From there, he sees the city differently. The rooftops no longer look like tombstones. The smoke curls upward, not as signal, but as continuation. He stays for a long time. Eventually, a boy arrives carrying a pipe and a pouch of seeds. He sits cross-legged nearby. "Do you think it's over?" the boy asks. "No," the doctor replies, "but I think it's changing." They sit in silence. The boy places seeds in the dirt. The doctor watches. They don't speak again. In the late afternoon, he walks to the scribe's wall. It is full now. No space remains. Someone has scrawled over the cracks. "We stopped counting the dead. We started counting each other." At the infirmary, the rooms are swept. The nurse waves as he passes. The children have turned the back chamber into a playroom. Someone's painted birds on the wall again, these ones in flight. As the sky turns gold, he walks one final route through the streets, past the fountain, past the statue, with reaching arms, past the bakery, with the warmth still radiating from within. He returns home. The table holds everything as he left it, the ribbon, the wax figure, the mask. He places the painted stone still on the windowsill, then opens his ledger. Today, no illness, 1 chair, 2 songs, 3 stones meant for feet. Then, I was not the cure, I was the witness. He lets the pen fall softly to the page and closes the book. Part 26. That night, sleep comes easily, not from exhaustion but release, the kind of sleep that arrives when the world no longer presses its weight upon your chest. The doctor wakes just before dawn, the first light barely outlining the edges of rooftops. No bells yet, just a sky preparing to breathe. He dresses without the mask. It remains on the table, watching, waiting, unnecessary. Today is not a day for fear. Today is for memory. He walks first to the field again. The chair still stands. Someone has added a second beside it, smaller, freshly carved. A child-sized seat. On its armrest, a leaf rests in the morning dew. 2 ribbons flutter together. The boy with the pipe returns while the doctor watches. He sits, plays a simple tune. It lasts only a few notes before drifting into the quiet. The doctor closes his eyes and listens. Later, near the garden where vines once choked the walls, he finds the women trimming back the overgrowth again. One waves him over, offers him a sprig of something new. "Lemon balm," she says, "for peace of mind." He adds it to his satchel beside the charm, beside the ribbon, beside the drawing. In the plaza, a small crowd gathers, not for mourning, not for speeches, just to be. Someone brings bread, someone else brews tea. No ceremony, no roles. The doctor stands among them and is no longer the one apart. A girl presses a folded page into his hand. On it is a drawing of a mask, and below it in uneven letters, "He was here." At midday, he walks past the scribe's wall. It has changed. Someone has covered the entire surface with whitewash. In the center, one sentence has been written in fresh ink. "We remember without needing to look." He smiles, not because it's true, because it's close. Further along, a boy who once played music with spoons now teaches a group of children to tap rhythms on clay pots. Each child takes turns. Each mistake turns into laughter. One says, "I want the world to sound like this forever." The doctor nods. In the alley behind the carpenter's shop, he finds the man who built the bench. He's working on a table now, long, narrow, made of scraps from broken doors. "This is where we'll share stories," he says. "Not the kind you write, the kind you pass." The doctor touches the edge of the wood, smooth, sanded with care. Evening comes slowly. The light lingers over every surface. He passes the fountain. The stone is warm. The girl with the doll named Breath has left behind a new ribbon. It says nothing, but its knot is perfect. Back in his room, he lights both candles. The flame glows against the mask. Then he lifts it one final time. Not to wear. To place gently inside a small cloth bundle stitched from the fabric of an old robe. He folds the edges carefully, ties it shut, sets it on the shelf, then writes, "Today 0 visits, 0 cries, 1 second chair, 1 folded goodbye. And I am no longer the one who walks alone." He closes the book, extinguishes the candle, and listens one last time to the sound of life outside the walls. Part 27. The dawn is golden, not metaphorically, truly. The light hits every wall, every cobblestone, every rooftop with the warmth of flame without burn. The city absorbs it slowly like a body waking from long illness. The doctor opens his eyes, and for the first time he doesn't reach for his cloak. He walks barefoot across the room. The mask remains untouched, wrapped and silent. His journal lies open to the last page. He does not write this morning. He steps outside instead. The streets breathe. He follows the same path he's always taken, down the alley near the smith shop, across the square, past the edge of the river. But everything is different now, not because the world has changed, but because it has resumed. A girl balances on the edge of a barrel, arms outstretched. "I'm taller now," she says, "or the barrel's shorter." He nods. Both can be true. Near the fountain, 2 boys play with a hoop made of old wire, chasing it through puddles that no longer carry ash. Their laughter echoes bold and careless. One sees the doctor and waves. "We remembered your name," he shouts, "even if we never knew it." At the chapel, a man hangs a bell rope with the help of a child. They struggle with the knot, then laugh when it slips. The bell above gleams polished, ready. It hasn't rung in weeks. It will ring soon. He walks toward the garden. The thyme and rosemary are blooming. The mint spills over its bed. The lemon balm from yesterday sits proud in the corner, already touched by bees. The woman tending it gestures at him. "We saved you a corner, not for herbs, for rest." He smiles behind nothing. At midday he visits the mural wall. It has changed again. Someone has painted over the tree, not to erase it, but to evolve it. Now the branches stretch higher, and from the tips light. Small stars, fireflies, sparks. Beneath it, a child has drawn a figure with a long cloak holding not a cane but a candle. And next to it, someone has written, "He walked into the fire so we could carry the light." He stops, stares for a long time, then continues on. "The bakery offers a new loaf today, circular, braided, sprinkled with rosemary. They've named it Remembrance Bread." The doctor accepts a piece and shares it with a woman on the corner who's mending boots. She nods without looking up. "You walk a little differently now," she says. "I carry less," he replies. The children from the square perform a song at twilight, just voices, no instruments. The lyrics make no sense, but the harmony holds. He sits on the bench made from old doors and listens until the last note fades. When he returns home, he does not light the candles. The room is still warm. The air carries lavender from the satchel he placed weeks ago. He writes, "Today 0 suffering, 2 loaves broken, 1 cloakless figure painted in stars." Then, "Tomorrow the bells will ring, not for warning, but for waking." He leaves the page open and sleeps with nothing on the table but air. Part 28. The bells ring at dawn. Not 1 but 3. Slow, clear, steady. The sound spreads across rooftops, through courtyards, down alleys once marked by silence. The city pauses, not in fear but in listening. Then slowly life resumes its rhythm around the chime. The doctor opens his eyes to the sound, not startled, not solemn, just present. The mask remains on the shelf untouched. His coat hangs by the door, but he doesn't reach for it. Today there is no need for uniforms. He steps out into a city that is not new but reborn. At the fountain, children splash barefoot, giggling, daring each other to chase the ripples. Someone has placed flowers along the edge, wild, mismatched, bright. He walks toward the old infirmary. The musician's wife is seated near the window, no longer playing, just watching the wind lift the curtains. The humming girl now teaches younger children how to braid twine into bracelets. One hands him a finished loop. "It's not for your wrist," she says, "it's for your story." He ties it to his satchel. Near the bakery, people sit on crates and overturned barrels, sharing bread and slices of dried pear. A man passes a cup to a stranger. "Tell me something good," he says. "Anything." The stranger replies, "The rats are gone." They both laugh. The doctor moves toward the courtyard by the chapel. The statue with the reaching arms is finished now. A bird perches on one outstretched hand, carved in detail, wings half lifted. Beneath it, a plaque reads, "To the ones who stayed, to the ones who carried." He rests a fingertip on the stone, warm from sunlight. He continues to the painter's wall. Someone has added color, deep reds, brilliant greens, streaks of gold. The tree no longer ends at its branches. It extends into sky stars' echoes. Around it are faces drawn quickly, imperfectly, lovingly, all different, all looking outward. A girl stands nearby holding a brush. "Do you want to add yours?" she asks. He shakes his head. "I was never the one to be seen." She dips her brush in blue anyway and paints a single dot in the corner. "That's you," she says, watching. In the afternoon, he walks to the edge of the city wall. The field beyond is green. No graves, no mounds, just wind moving over tall grass. A woman sits beneath a tree, weaving long strands of ribbon into a circle. "What's it for?" he asks. "A wreath," she says, "not for death, for beginning." He leaves a seed beside her, pressed into the soil. As evening gathers, he returns past the well. The ribbon breath is still tied there, faded now, fraying at the edges. It dances in the wind. He doesn't touch it. He simply bows his head once, then walks on. Back in his room, the shelf is full. A wooden figure, a stitched charm, a stone with the word still, a cloth mask embroidered with green, a bird sketch, a circle of thread, a paper folded into silence. He opens his book and writes, "Today, 0 fear. 3 bells rung, 1 brushstroke in blue, 1 wreath not for mourning." Then, "I was not their healer, I was their witness. Now they remember themselves." He sets down the pen, extinguishes the candle, and lets the dusk carry what remains. Part 29. Morning comes without urgency. The sun stretches gently over rooftops, slipping through windows as if to check that all is still breathing. In the doctor's room, the air is cool. The shelf holds the same quiet offerings. The mask remains wrapped. Today he does not touch it. He walks without the satchel, no supplies, no book, just footsteps, just breath. At the square, the children are arranging chairs in a circle. One holds a flute. Another carries a page of lyrics, its edges torn. "It's not perfect," she says, "but it's ours." The doctor nods. The chairs are mismatched stools, crates, stones, but together they form something like a stage. He continues down the alley behind the bakery. The woman with the wheel of ribbons spins it softly in the breeze. Its colors blur. She's added small bells to the spokes. They chime faintly, barely more than whispers. "Some wishes take longer," she says. He watches the wheel turn. In the garden, the vines climb higher. A small wooden sign has been placed in the thyme bed, "No one grew alone." A man waters the roots with a cracked jug, pausing between pours to hum something that might once have been a lullaby. Near the chapel, people gather not for prayer, but for something slower. One lays out blankets, another opens a book. A few sit, not speaking. A child hands out petals, one to each person. The doctor receives a yellow one. He holds it until the breeze takes it from his fingers. Further along, the carving of the figure with arms raised has changed again. A scarf now rests on its shoulders. Around the base, someone has arranged flat stones into a spiral, each etched with a name. No last names, no dates, just Nico, Allah, Ren, Mara. He adds no stone, but he walks the spiral once silently. By midday, the wall with the mural tree is covered with new handprints, children, adults, smudged and layered. The branches now carry color not from paint, but from touch. A boy points to one near the top. "That's mine," he says, "but it's higher than I can reach." Another child replies, "We lifted you, remember?" The doctor smiles. At the river bank, he watches the water drift slow and sure. A girl stands nearby, dropping petals into the current. "Each one is a goodbye," she says. He nods. Each one is also a return. Later, he visits the carpenter's square. The long table is finished. Plates and cups are already laid out. Bread, soup, fruit. Someone is singing. Not loud, not sad. Just enough to remind the air it can carry more than silence. As the sun sets, he returns to the place where he once recorded names, symptoms, numbers. The book remains closed. He does not open it. He places it on the windowsill beside the painted stone. Then lights a single candle and writes on a piece of parchment, not a record, not a count. Just this. Nothing was cured, but everything changed. He places the note beside the wrapped mask, then opens the window, lets the wind enter, lets the bell ring once in the distance, lets the breath move through the room without fear. Part 30. There's no ritual this morning, no checklist, no route to follow. The doctor wakes not from need, but from stillness. The light through the window is soft and pale, not the golden blaze of hope, not the gray mist of grief, something between. A calm light, a light that says this is the end of one thing and not yet the beginning of another. He dresses simply, no cloak, no satchel, no mask, just his hands, his breath, and a quiet step through a city that no longer needs a guardian in black. The square is filled, not with mourning or song, but people. Some sweep the stone with bundled twigs, others hang ribbons from balconies. A boy teaches a toddler to clap. A woman paints a sun onto the wall where once only names were written. There are no announcements, no ceremonies, just the hum of presence. At the fountain, a flute plays. The girl who once hummed now sings softly to herself while tying flowers into a chain. She waves him over but says nothing. He sits. For a while they are only two people beneath the same sky. He visits the chapel garden. The vines have spread to the top of the wall. Someone has hung wind chimes from the branches. They ring like soft memories. A girl waters the roots with two hands. They need both, she says, to feel like someone cares. He walks to the scribe's wall. There's no space left, but someone has etched a final line along the ground. We survived by listening to each other's silence. He kneels, touches the stone, and walks on. The painter's tree now touches the sky. The birds have wings wide open. There are no crows left, only color. In the alley behind the tanner's shop, a boy has drawn a map, not of roads or buildings, but of songs, places where people danced, laughed, wept. Each spot marked with a heart. It's not geography, he says. It's memory. The doctor places a stone on one corner. The boy nods, then adds a circle around it. At the garden's edge, he finds the statue again, arms raised, a ribbon caught in its fingers. The spiral of names remains, but now at the center someone has placed a mirror. The sky reflects in it, so does his face. He smiles, not because it's over, because it was lived. That evening the table is full. Old doors turned into a feast. Breadfruit laughter. They make room for him. He eats, he drinks, he listens. They do not ask for his name. They know who he was. Not the mask. The memory. That night in his room, the candle burns low. He opens the journal one last time. Today, 0 rolls, 0 masks, 1 full table, 1 map of memory. And the work is not remembered. The presence is... He closes the book, stands, extinguishes the light, then opens the window, and lets the night in. Cool down ending 300 words. The city sleeps, not from exhaustion but from peace, the kind that only comes when a silence is earned, not forced. The wind glides over rooftops, touches shutters, lifts leaves. It carries no ash, no cries, only the breath of lives continuing. Below, someone hums in sleep. Someone else stirs to feed a child. In another room, laughter spills from a mouth that once only whispered prayers. No record is kept of this moment. No scroll, no monument. But it lives. In walls still standing. In gardens planted with hands once trembling. In the voice of a girl who taught herself to sing. The doctor lies in bed. The mask remains wrapped, the ledger closed, but the breath in his chest is no longer alone. It belongs to the city again. The plague never bowed, but neither did they. The silence became song. The fear became ritual. The names were never forgotten. Outside, the moon watches without judgment. A ribbon flutters on the well-post. A child's drawing rests beneath a stone. And somewhere a bell rings, not loud, not sharp. Just enough to say, we're still here. We're still listening. We remember. End of script. Good night.